Winter.
Hey guys, so in this video I thought I'd go in depth on single player combat and break down some more leaked alpha footage along with some other details. These are some of the things you can expect if you like to lone wolf it in the Division. At first, combat seems like pretty usual third-person shooter fare. The player highlights a few enemies and engages. You seem to get 37 XP at this point for each kill. After dispensing a few of these guys, the player heads up and interfaces with a computer, which scares me just a little bit. If you've played a lot of games like Destiny, after a while every mission can turn into a variation of go to this thing and hold this button to do this action. But the mission does seem to change fluidly into a rescue mission, pointing to some variety at least. Once combat kicks off here, it's worth noting that many people who tested the Division prior to this gameplay noted that it takes a few shots too many to take an enemy down, but here we see enemies dropping after about 2 bursts. Hopefully they've shortened the time to kill. It seems that when your health is lower, the screen not only reddens to show that you're injured, but you can also see things like bullet trails, and it makes you almost hypersensitive. Here we can see a very helpful grenade queue floating over an enemy's head. And not only that, but we can see the AoE, or area of effect, of that grenade, enabling you to run away to a safe distance. Sadly for this guy though, his attempt at rescuing Dr. Kendall isn't going well. We can see the screen growing more obscured and red, which I can already tell is probably going to get annoying a little quick. Not only is the screen red, but the UI gets distorted. After failing to evade a grenade and then being cornered by this enemy, we can see him go down, sending the player back to a checkpoint outside that large room. Throughout the video, we could see various cues to jump over cover or jump into new pieces of cover, which looks like it'll make moving across the battlefield a bit more fluid. It reminds me a bit of the cover system in Mass Effect 2 and 3, which they worked well if players took advantage of them. Ammo's also marked on enemies very clearly, so you'll know what's on the map. You kill them even from afar. After a few more enemies, the player seems to pull out some heavier weaponry. He pulls out some sort of grenade launchers, which players can then detonate at their own will. This isn't a weapon though, if you notice, it's actually on cooldown. That's because this ability is Sticky Bomb, which is the first ability that can be found in the tech skill tree. Fast forward a bit, we see the player take another approach by stealthily stalking his enemies. You can see that by highlighting enemies, we get their level and health bar, and after opening a round of fire, we see that Sticky Bomb ability in use again. If we skip even further, we can see some environmental advantages as well, as the player sets off an explosion in the background. It's just nice to see that this isn't a world filled with clutter or dead objects, but you can actually use them to your advantage.
Guns on him. He'll have to bug out.
Once the player fights through the VIP bar, he hits the roof where we see a new checkpoint, and then he even comes across some loot.
Alpha escort. We have an agent on the roof. Has Kendall made it to your position?
Affirmative. Theater staff just arrived.
He's in luck and finds 2 flashbang grenades and a frag grenade, and even a med kit along with some SMG ammo. This loot, along with that mission's buildup and the checkpoint, makes me think he's headed for a large fight. Players seem to take a huge amount of damage when they're not in cover, so at least until higher level gear becomes available, it looks like we'll be sticking to cover a lot. And I know this is something that's concerning a lot of players because there's a lot of people who don't like cover-based shooters all that much. It seems that other animations pop up above enemies' heads, like this one, which is probably the sign of a heavy machine gun of some sort. And just after this enemy opens fire, a melee enemy rushes the player. In this second attempt, we see what might be an elite enemy. As the player rushes the elite enemy, we can see him getting surrounded by even more melee enemies, and in his death, we see this enemy is known as Hutch. So I guess we can consider him a minor mission and boss. It's also worth pointing out that every time the player died, he took a different route, so it kind of speaks to how open these paths are around the mission. But after fast forwarding a bit, we can see what happens when you let an enemy player behind your line of sight as he's taken out again. It seems that these low-level enemies are known as lurkers. On the final attempt, the player goes for a more vertical approach, which really surprised me since we hadn't seen this before. It's nice to know we can really move around the area on multiple levels. When I first saw this, I thought it would be a great solution to those melee enemies, but as we can see here, they can move around just as much as you can, although it does leave them open to fire. And finally, after clearing the ads, Hutch has come down himself. After popping that sticky bomb ability, it doesn't seem to do much to him. Sadly, we won't know how that battle ends though, but we did learn a bit about the overall UI in combat and how combat will flow, at least in early levels. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and if you like what you saw, hit that like button and please do subscribe for more. As all this week, I'll be releasing daily content in celebration of the channel launch, and regular content after that. Thanks a lot, guys.
Dark Winter.